allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Make sure everybody, including me, turns their phones to silent. Consider additions, deletions.
Just one addition, you believe they have it on the agenda though, under other, approve Cass County Children's Initiative Interagency Agreement, and that is an action item.
Then I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Visitor comments. Invited some of the press this week, but apparently you didn't take me seriously. You told me our meetings are not as exciting as others. Apparently we don't have enough drama.
That's okay.
We could change that.
I told him to
No,
bring
we don't
some,
need to
but
change it.
he didn't want to do it, so I'll consider the consent agenda. We have the meeting minutes of the September 21st regular meeting, monthly cash flow including investments, monthly bills paid, donations, which I'd like to read off, and the personnel summary sheet. Gotta get the donations in front of me. From Prairie Lakes, is that the?
I didn't see any donations.
Maybe that's just a regular thing in there, just in case. I didn't see any other than the Prairie Lakes thing. And
I wasn't sure
It's
that
actually
was a
Sarah.
donation.
I'm sorry?
It's actually the donations from Jean Giraffe Projects. It's a charity.
Okay, so the
Charity.
Prairie Lakes paper was actually where it was on, the decal paths and
Yep.
such. So thank you to Jean Giraffe Project for that donation. And I would entertain a motion to consider the consent agenda, including that donation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Curriculum. Indeed. So
Did we,
We pushed that one
Me.
out.
Well, it's all yours.
That's next month.
it's all you.
You ready?
I'm ready for
Okay.
you.
So in your
We are
packet,
ready for you.
perfect. In your packet, there is just an update of the last month, and I'll just go through a couple of things there. The big piece, all of our teachers have been meeting in their professional learning communities, so either grade levels or departments. And the big part for the beginning of the year is setting their goals. So based off of either student achievement or looking at district initiatives and setting goals for the year for their group. And then also their individual growth plan. So each of our teachers has an individual growth plan that they're working towards. And then included in that, in your packet, is a flow chart showing that teacher growth and development pathway. So whether you're a tenured teacher or a non-tenured teacher, you can see kind of what are the steps they have. If you're a tenured teacher, you have a 3-year cycle. And so if you're in the first year, you have an evaluation process. And then if you're in years 2 or 3, you can see that they have that individual growth plan. And then they have a peer review process as well. And that aligns to the state of Minnesota's the legislative law. And then a couple other pieces there. The middle school science pilot is moving forward. We have 2 that we've selected to start with, which is Amplify, which is one that the elementary looked at last year. And then the other one is Savas, which is Pearson. And so we're looking at those 2. And hopefully by November, we have some information in terms of one we want to proceed further with.
So you haven't actually the one started last Wednesday, but you
The
don't
one
have any
started last
actual.
one, but it was really just a training.
Oh, I like this one
piece.
so far.
Yep.
Okay.
Savas, they've got a little bit in there where they've kind of teased it with the kids a little bit to get some feedback.
Okay.
Kind of got some 50-50 on whether they like the actual online component that came with it. So we're getting some good feedback from kids. I will say Beth Stride is doing an amazing job of kind of putting the kids into it and saying, you know, we want your feedback. We want to know what you think.
Nice. Good.
So the department chairs met this last week as well. The big piece is cataloging our curriculum maps looking at our pacing guides. What do we have? What are we looking at? Are we missing any holes? We also discussed the state of Minnesota's review process in terms of where we're at with standards. Mathematics is right now up for review. And so the state is asking for help from districts to come in and help be part of that review process. And then just the last piece with assessments, I'll try to just keep you guys up to date as we go. We had PSAT in October 13th, and then we've scheduled our scheduling the pre-ACT.
Just out of curiosity, are colleges going to want them again?
You know,
Because they didn't this last year.
Right, exactly. You know, it's actually been a movement for quite a while. Colleges that are kind of looking at alternate ways for admittance for students. COVID kind of changed that on them, and so we'll see kind of where they go with that. Whether or not they continue to move down that path of looking for portfolio-driven, more looking at what are the courses you took, kind of that application process, and not so much on the admittance through a standardized test.
But the PSAT is still used for the
National Merit Scholarship absolutely still uses the PSAT for that.
So a lot of kids don't realize that when they take the test.
Yeah, it's
Very few kids are up for the National Merit Scholarship.
right.
That's
It is.
probably
It's
why.
a pretty small percentage that are in the category. Certainly is a prestigious piece in
Yes,
terms
very
of
good.
the district, but also the scholarship that goes along with it could be quite substantial.
Right.
And then you said pre-ACT. We haven't done a pre-ACT
Yeah,
here
so-
before.
Right. So I don't want to date myself, but quite a few years back, they used to have kind of a pre-ACT test that they did called the plan test.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And it kind of went away, and now ACT is coming back out with another.
Because they do it kind of like in 8th grade or
Yeah,
something.
I think
don't
it's
they?
to compete with the PSAT more than
Yeah.
anything.
So it won't, what grade will that be for?
I believe it's either 9th or 10th grade. So
I think it was 9th grade.
I think it's 9th grade or
Or then the
7th grade.
PSAT is for 11th grade?
10th or into 11th grade. 11th grade, it's the National Merit Scholarship that
Oh.
they can qualify for. You can actually take it as a 10th grader as well. The PSA or pre-ACT was like the plan test that was really heavy in career. And so it's a survey as well, and it really collected that. We'll see if this one is really similar to that.
Yeah.
But really drove that CTE career, like
Yeah, I
what
guess I
might you
remember
be
that.
interested in,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
where could it take you? So,
Levi's grade did it and scored quite well.
Yeah.
Grace's class didn't score as well, and it was kind of,
there were a lot of us that were really
Weird.
disappointed. The plan test gave a lot of great information, almost more than the PSAT did. So it'll be interesting to see if really they brought it back, or if it's something different.
And since you're talking about those tests, is Pillager gonna do the ACT this year?
That's a good question. I don't know about that. I assume
That's usually
the state
juniors.
is still pushing that piece of it, so I assume that we will. We'll schedule it for the spring. The window is quite large, so I've got the information on it. The counselors will work to, or I should say Sue, will work to schedule the right time to do it. It's 5-6 years ago, we got completely reimbursed for it from the state. That's kind of diminished quite a bit, but
So it's probably a charge for it this year.
I think we've been
I
charged
think
for
that-
it for the last few years.
yeah,
but we
there's
agreed we
usually
wanted
a piece to
everybody
it, but we
take
have a reimbursement that's in process right now too, so.
But that was when also you needed it to get into college or something like that, and if you don't anymore.
Well, they're
that's
still
gonna be-
asking for it. The application is
Yeah.
for college, the ACT scores.
Really? 'Cause
Yes,
there was quite a few last year that did not. I know a ton
Yeah,
of kids that said.
but now I
"Yeah,
think it's bad.
Is it back? I wondered if that'd go back, and that's why I asked, if it'd go back and forth.
It'll be a good question. There were 5, 6, 7 years ago, there really started a big debate across the country of whether or not that entrance exam will continue. You have a lot of your non-publics that started to move towards a more application-based process and not necessarily a standardized test. The state system, though, will lag behind that dramatically. So whether your University of Minnesota or your
Yeah.
MnSTU system is always going to have that requirement, at least for a while to come. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, consider the insurance of compliance prohibiting discrimination. We do this every year, so I would entertain a motion. You all have it, should have it in front of you or in your packets.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Personnel, we did not meet, but included in your packet is the seniority list, which I was just asked who the most senior teacher was and if it was Ann Hutch. And I said, no, I think Lisa Pettit still beats her. So I'm glad to be proven right. That tells you also how old I am because both of them started when I was here. But we need to make a motion and accept that list. I assume it's already been given to the teachers and.
Correct. They have signed off on it.
Perfect.
I'll make that motion.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Facilities, we did not meet. But
I
it
could
is
just do a quick
beautiful.
little update. We have a couple things that are going to be finished up in the CTC center this week. The fire doors will be here this week.
All right.
The diffusers, I think is what they're called on the sides, they came in today. So they will be installed this week. What else were we waiting for in there?
Soundboard.
Soundboard, I don't know if I've heard on that. But most of the things, we should be able to get occupancy for November 1st. So the first band concert we're planning on having that in the CTC Center for November 1st.
And will there be a thing sent out to the band parents telling us when to show up for us?
We'll have a code, the band parents will have a code.
Okay.
That they'll get so many tickets, they go in and enter the code and then they'll get the seats that they go in and just, so they'll have,
Enter the code.
what's that?
Where did they enter it on their computer at home?
They'll go into the website, you'll get the seats and when it'll talk you through the system, will talk you through, the kids will get a code. And I don't know how many seats they'll get, I don't know that process yet, but if they get 4 seats or 6 seats per kid or per family, and you have to so long to do it, and they go in and.
Are you assigned seats then, or
I
you
think
have
it'll
to
be
pick
first
them?
come, first served.
Okay, good.
I believe it's how the window opens up and then you go in and pick your seats and assign them, and then you click what seats you want and you fill them in and then they're full. But you only get so many per student. And then once those are filled and we have seats open, then they can come in and be open for the general. I don't assume, but we'll live stream the concert.
That's what I was gonna ask next.
So for example, if, we have 100 kids in band, obviously you only have 400 seats. So, each person would only get so many seats. And then if we're full, grandma and grandpa can't watch it because they only get 4 seats and they wanted 6. They would have to do the YouTube channel to watch it through live stream.
And if you have, say, a junior high kid, when your kid's over, you have to.
We're going to do separate concerts,
Oh, they'll be on separate dates. Oh,
No,
okay.
there's separate time.
separate times. I think it's 6 and 8 or something. And then
That's what I mean. You
Yeah.
can't just stay
I
through.
think I don't know if you do separate nights or separate. I don't know.
But separate times according to
Separate concerts.
Same night, just an hour later. 6:30 and 7.
Parking
Could
will
be an
a
advantage and it
peach.
could be a disadvantage.
My plan when I talked about it last was to do them on different nights. That's what I advised them to do. But obviously they don't listen to me. So
Well, and see, if I was a parent back when I had a kid in 5th grade, 8th grade, and 9th or 10th grade, and I had to come 3 separate nights to watch a band concert, I'd have been irritated.
But once again,
So-
the downside of that is if you got 6 people,
Agreed,
you can't get them all in.
agreed,
So there's good and bad with everything. So
yes.
You want
Yeah,
Johnny
advantages and
and,
disadvantages.
you know, if you got two kids, sometimes
gotta
you
make
got
those choices.
disadvantages, Sarah. I
You
know
gotta
that.
make those choices.
Yep, you're the one that had 3 kids.
That's why I only have one in band
I
right
know.
now.
So
And
I,
I
you know,
care less
there's goods and bads and
Yeah.
everything, so having separate nights, you free up that
Yeah.
issue there, but. You know, if it doesn't work, they can try it this way, and if it doesn't work,
Yeah,
you
that's-
know, they'll have to do it differently next time.
And are there seats for staff and board members if they want to go?
You will probably have to
Wait for the general seating to be
wait
open.
to see how many seats there are open and stuff. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far with them,
Okay.
so
Well, I'll probably be in the sound booth. Then.
Yeah. we haven't gotten that far. So
I just wanted to.
we just found out that we could have it in there this week, so I know John will have to work through that with Rob and all that. We'll do it through Venco, just like we do everything else, the musical and all that, we'll go through that.
Activities,
We did not meet.
We did not meet.
policy.
All right,
You get to read to us.
okay, everybody, I got 10, so bear with me here. So I'm just gonna start from the one that I have on the top of my page. We're gonna start with 524, Internet Acceptable Use and Safety Policy. And the change is adding that what is unacceptable uses is not an exhaustive list. So if there's something that did fall in here that was inappropriate, it can be reevaluated. TikTok was added to the prohibited with Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter in there.
Wow, the times.
Yes, and then it went back to about internet acceptability in regards to the school district has special interest in regarding off-campus uses and speech, anything that disrupts classwork or involves invasion of others' rights that are at school. And that was the main changes for that one. All right, going on to unpaid meal charges went to school meals policy. And this goes back to that they used to have some rules at some point where if you had an unpaid balance, you couldn't play sports and things like that. So that is taking those things away. And there were some parts that were added. Students who have been determined to be eligible for free or reduced lunch will always be served a reimbursable meal if the student has an outstanding balance. Is that you can't take a meal away or dump it. Sometimes a kid would go through a line and get the meal and then they throw it away or take it away if it was unpaid for. So the fact is that they've just put rules in here that
irritated me.
You
They throw it away anyway.
you just can't do stuff like that.
Not
So
their fault.
no, so there's policy just got cleaned up with that kids get to eat and we're not gonna embarrass kids in front of everybody because they have an outstanding balance.
Can I just clarify that? I don't believe we did that here since
No,
I've been
I
here.
just
Maybe did it years
somewhere,
ago.
a
Not
different,
that I know
a
of,
different
but
district or somewhere
I
else.
know that other districts have.
You know, what
Yes.
number was that one?
534.
All right, we are on to 509, enrollment of non-resident students. That one, got some changes because we talked about the caps. So grades, kindergarten through 12th was capped at 105. The grade level cap may be adjusted by the school board with the recommendations from the administrator due to lack of space, availability, teacher availability, increase or decrease in education expenses. If an enrollment cap has been reached and enrollment has been closed, a sibling of a student who is currently enrolled at Pillager School will be allowed to open enroll into the district regardless of the cap being reached. So if there's somebody, a sibling in the district that was in an open grade, and they can join too, even if we've met the cap. Questions on that one?
This comes back to the summer where we changed that 105 to went down to 92. Or we could go from, let's say in the 4th grade where we had 5 sections already, and they had lower class sizes in that than they did in, let's say, 1st grade. we could actually, if it helped, we could raise that if it helped with costs. For example, we could bring in 4 more kids in 4th grade because it would help decrease the costs. So it just gave us that flexibility to do that if we wanted to.
And if they didn't go here already, like their family, then they can't open enroll. Like if you had, say, a 2nd grader and a 4th grader, and they didn't go here.
They were
at all.
already here.
Yeah, that wasn't already here, right?
It's not coming. It was like a 9th grader was here.
Or like you have a 10th grader and there's one coming into kindergarten.
Yeah. Okay,
I don't know if this would ever happen because, I mean, it's just,
but you wouldn't want them. to be
yeah,
excluded.
I don't know how that would happen, but because it would,
Never seen it.
usually if you have a person that already committed to our district, you know, let's say your child was already going here for a couple of years, you would probably already have your open enrollment stuff in, but let's say you forgot for some reason.
I can name a couple families.
So, and all of a sudden then we're already at 105 in kindergarten, and then they say, well, I want my son or daughter to go here, and now we're at 106. Well, they've committed to, they've had their family here for 2 or 3 years, you know. But usually the family, no, we send them a letter in January. So usually they get their stuff in when they've already committed to our district, but just in case, that kind of gives that. But they would have already had to been here. This isn't for a new family coming in.
So these are prior year.
Yes, they would have already had to be here.
Prior
Yep.
year.
Okay. Policy number 102, equal educational opportunity. This is verbiage change. It's no longer disabled students, students with disabilities. There's a section added about discrimination against students with disabilities in regards to section 504. More of the medical aspect is that they won't be discriminated. And then, there's also another part in regards to Title IX in that male and female are equal and that there's no hierarchy of each, is that everybody is treated equally. So it goes back to just the non-discrimination. So that was one section added there, is that the biggest part is adding the 504 to that. Does that sound good, Mike?
Yep.
Questions on that one, you guys? Verbiage changes, updating with the times. Okay, policy number 406, public and private personal data. This goes back to that private means data is not public and is accessible only to the following. It's just laying out that the data that within the school or personal data is not to be shared. There's a lot of verbiages taken out in regards to about employees versus boards or advisory boards. Protected health information means that it needs to be protected in regards to all media, whether it's paper or electronic. So those verbiages were done. Talking about current and former employees in regards to what's appropriate data to share and what's not. I think that was about it. It was just some wording changes, right, Mike? There wasn't
Yeah.
anything.
Biggest piece there was the electronic piece.
Going from paper.
Yeah, and then what can and can't be shared was a little bit of an updated there.
Putting information on from scan boxes into like a cloud space of what can be shared and what can't be shared. Questions on that one? Okay. Policy number 413, harassment and violence. The biggest change on this one is changing protected class. It's no longer separated. So protected classes went into like religion, national origin, sex, age. Now it's just all called a protected class. So the verbiage throughout this policy got changed in regards to that. And I think that was it on that one.
They just didn't list it all, they just took all the
They just
individual
crossed
lists and just said,
Across them all.
it's all protected.
Because they're changing so often and adding more, so this makes it so you have to change it less often.
Okay, policy number 425, staff development, and we added end mentoring to that policy. There is a section part, we don't have an advisory staff development committee, we have a district leadership team, so that was added, and the advisory staff development committee was crossed out. The district leadership team will develop a staff development plan that will be revised and subject to approval by the end of, by the school board twice a year. So that was added. And then it went on to about staff development funding is that, to the extent of extra funds remaining, staff development revenue may be used for development plans, including plans for challenging instructional activities and experiences under another section of curriculum development. And then it also went on to that extra funds can be used for mentors. Correct, Mike?
Yeah, creating a mentoring program,
Program.
and you can also use it to create a stipend for a mentor program, which was interesting because we had just talked about that this year. We were talking about developing that because we had so many new teachers. So we had kind of talked about that already. So that might be something that we look on Schedule C as putting that in as a stipend for a teacher who, when they take that on as a mentoring of a new teacher, they get a stipend for that. And we can use staff development dollars to do that. So it wouldn't necessarily come out of, well, it would still come out of general fund, I guess, right, Missy? She's still here? Yeah. It would still be a general fund, but it would come out of the staff development code.
The school district may use staff development revenues, special grant programs established by the legislature or other funding sources to be paid in the stipend to the member who may be a current or former teacher who has taught in the last 3 years.
And what does the school board actually approve twice a year?
That is
The staff development plan? Or is it it's the staff
we'll
development.
develop a staff development plan that will be reviewed and subject to approval by the school board twice a year.
Which we never done before.
I don't.
We've never had to do that. That was between myself and the teachers. So we have shared it on the district leadership team though.
Right, yeah.
The staff development, we've always shared that with us. So technically we've done it once. And I don't know how it's going to be interesting because we plan it for the whole year. I don't know how that's something we're going to have to talk about with Ryan. And I don't know how to do it twice a year is kind of going to be odd because you plan it for the whole year.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say at the second one, you just
Just
review
it
it,
and say if
if
it's the same
anything's
thing.
changed, and,
Right.
nope,
may not
still the
change.
same.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
he could give an update as to, hey, here's everything we've done on the plan.
Right.
To see
It would just maybe have to fall under we just have to put it in
They took that.
on one of the committees and then put it on an action item. Right. Yeah, I guess my mind was thinking it would change, but it doesn't have to change.
Doesn't have to change.
Right.
Yep, same as we did 6 months ago. You
Yeah.
good with that? Yep.
Right.
Hold on.
Correct. Yep. My mind was thinking you could create a new one, but no, you don't. The only other thing too, Cassie, you want to talk about, in here, it was a 2-year term.
The 2-year term got crossed out.
Yes, because,
Members of the site professional development teams will be appointed by the Pillager School Board. Team members shall serve a 2-year term. So it got crossed out. Team members shall serve a blank based on the nominations of board members, teachers, and paraprofessionals. So there's no selected term.
and the reason being is Brian and I talked about it, is sometimes it's hard to get people to serve on them. And, sometimes people want to serve on them. And, like Shelley Koska has been our chair for 3 years. So why would I say, well, you can only be 2 years? when she's willing to do it, and sometimes I can't ask, nobody wants to do it,
Well,
so.
sometimes after a year, somebody's life situation changes and they can no longer do what they used to do.
So we thought, why have it in there? In a small district, a lot of times it makes no sense to have, if you're in Anoka and you got, 8,000 teachers to choose from, yeah, but when you're a Pillager,
Yeah.
so we just think it's best to take that out and not hold them to a 2-year term. So, we took that out.
You got 3 more?
No, maybe.
I've got 5 more.
I got a lot here. so.
Yeah,
Okay, 501, school weapons policy. The part that got added here is dangerous weapon. Means firearms, whether loaded or unloaded. And then they added in any combustible or flammable liquid or other device. I think it's flammable liquid means any liquid having a flash point below 100 degrees Fahrenheit or having a vapor temperature not exceeding 40 pounds per square inch at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So,
So no 80 proof alcohol.
yeah, so if you do that, that is also considered a school weapon.
So you can't bring alcohol to school, kids.
No. And then they added a part, the building principal shall, as soon as practicable, I can't say it, refer to the criminal justice or juvenile building system. So that was added. Questions? Mike?
no, that's it, those 2 things, added the flammable liquid, and we have to report when a student brings a firearm to the school, we have to report it to, principal has to report it,
Okay.
which I think we typically did anyway.
On to 503, student attendance. There is a section added on student attendance in regards to religious observance accommodations. Reasonable efforts will be made by the school district to accommodate any student who wishes to be excused from curricular activity for religious observance. Requests for the accommodations should be directed to the building principal. And then under another section of this, the school district will provide annual notices to parents of the school district's policy relating to a student's absence from the school for religious observance. That is the 2 pieces that were added. Questions? Good?
I'm good.
All right. Okay, 507, corporal punishment. The one part that was added in
I don't
section
understand them.
Section 2, general statement of policy, it says Pillager School District or charter school. And that was the only verbiage that was added on that one.
Pretty sure they got rid of spanking a while ago.
Some.
We'll bring it back, is that what you're saying?
All right, I think I only got one left.
That's all, 515?
515.
That's the only one I haven't crossed off.
Okay, protection and privacy of pupil records. Okay, this is about educational records. They just added some pieces, records that are considered personal, and how you can store them, how you're going to keep them. One part of this protected in privacy information is that grades on peer-related papers before the papers are collected and recorded by the teacher are not an educational record. So like if peers grade things for each other, they're not actually a real educational record until the teacher grades them themselves. So that was a piece.
Does that include teachers' assistants? Like when they
I
have
didn't
a,
add that part.
it's just teachers.
Yeah.
Curious. I'm sure it doesn't say that.
That one doesn't.
They didn't think of that.
That one didn't say that
Yeah.
one. And this is another big section, when a school district updates its enrollment forms in an ordinary course, of business, the school district must include a box of enrollment to allow students to identify as military connected youth. For purposes of the section, a military connected youth means having an immediate family member, including parent or sibling, who's currently in the armed force, either as a reservist or an active duty member. Data collected under this part may be published by the Department of Education. That was a bit. I think that was it.
That was enlightening, enjoyable.
So welcome.
I-
Get
I
to do
miss
that
it.
2 more times.
I miss being on the policy committee, I'll be honest. Was that all the policy committee took care of, or would you like to share anything else with us?
Technically,
You got it.
I think that was it.
We will move on to budget.
We did not meet.
And then Missy, we're patiently waiting for you. I'm sure it will be just as,
I'm like,
if not more than enlightening as that.
I'll try. All right, so, just a couple of little updates. The audit was a little, usually we report audit at the October board meeting, but we were waiting on our actuary study. So that just came last Wednesday, and it was not enough time for the auditors to gather all the reports and present and whatnot. So that will be in November, so we can look forward to that. I believe maybe a few months ago, we had discussed possibly digitizing some of our records. So we're continuing that process, just looking into what it's going to all entail, how much it's going to cost. We're in the process of getting a quote for that. So the company that we're looking at, they will, basically what it does is it creates file cabinets. So we can have a file cabinet for nursing, file cabinet for special ed, a file cabinet for accounting, file cabinet for student records, and then only certain people can have access to each file cabinet. So it kind of goes in line with the data privacy, and but it also gets everything, all of our records out kind of in the cloud, so we have, it's easily accessible versus right now, if somebody called me looking for something, I would literally have to walk out to the track shed and start digging in boxes. So this would make it a little more
Which isn't
accessible.
necessarily very secure. If somebody wants to
And
call.
or protected for fire or
Right.
something.
Right,
And,
Right.
yeah,
because some of our records are permanent retention.
Right.
So,
Oh,
I mean, if
some
we
of
have
them
a,
are permanent.
yeah,
yes, so if we have a natural disaster, that's not, they're
yeah,
gone.
keep them forever.
Have you
Just-
just dig in those boxes much? Lori has.
Just out of curiosity, will, if even on the cloud, will some then still be kept, like the permanent retention ones, will we keep a dual
yep.
paper and?
Nope, they
Oh,
get shredded.
No,
Wow.
it'll
And
be
you have-
permanently retained in the cloud.
And there's like 5 different places where they back that up.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll shred all that, but we have to put in a notice in the paper.
Yep.
That they will all be shredded. So if you want them, you have to come, you have to publicize that. We have to update our policy to say that. But yeah,
And
we'll
then
have
we
all
The
that,
truck brought in and
but we'll have to have people this summer, we'll have to hire people that will scan all that stuff to the cloud. So we'll have to look at that. But then all that stuff we don't have to have that storage spot for all that stuff and boxes, it's all, and then from year to year, all that stuff gets scanned. So-
some enrollment records are permanent type records because like, people like on ancestry.com and stuff like that, that's where they pull some of those things
Mr.
from,
Savage
from
has
those
actually had
permanent
requests for high school diplomas from back in, what did you say?
50 something,
50s?
53. Can we get a copy of our high school diploma from 1953? or something?
Sometimes you need those for, benefits and different things.
And there's some things you have to keep for a year, some things you have to keep for 2 years, some things are 7 years. Some things are permanent.
We had to do that with the travel agency too.
Yeah, so what's odd is sometimes we just keep everything and it's in a file.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, some of those things you didn't need to have. So this way, after each year, it's just, what's nice about digitizing it, it just goes away after 1 year. You set it up to where it clears out. So there's not somebody that has to, what's nice too is if we get audited, like Missy gets audited the the auditors come in and want records, you just boom, 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 and she sends it to them.
Instead of going in.
Right, right. Special ed, if we get audited special ed, they'll say, we want to pull the IEPs from these 7 cases. Here, and special ed people can just go in and say, click those buttons, and 10 minutes later, there they are. Versus going into the file cabinets and pulling the records and, spending a day trying to find the files.
Yeah, because when you pulled it last year, you were kind of lazy when you put it back, so you put it in the front and it wasn't
Yeah.
alphabetized, so you looked in the alphabetical section and then realized,
It's not going to be, I don't think it's
It's
going to be a
never
very
happened
cheap endeavor. Because you're gonna have to pay somebody, hourly wage. Pequot, I think, went through it last summer, I think it was. I think it was like, I think Chris told me it was like in the $23,000 to do it. But once you do it, it's there. And like if we ever do some work in the track shed and redo it, where are we gonna put all that stuff? So it's nice that we're kind of thinking of doing it. So, but we're continuing that process.
nice.
Getting with the times.
Yep.
And then I was just gonna update, we did apply for a grant through MDE for some COVID-19 testing. So you saw somebody probably, when you walked in today, somebody is out there to distribute testing kits. So once we got so many through the state, but at a certain point, we're gonna have to start paying for testing kits. And this will allow us to pay for the testing kits out of this grant. And then we can also code some other expenses there, like if we have, the people that we are handling detesting, those can get coded to that grant as well. So that was about $62,533 that we received for that grant. And then we also applied for another grant through the American Rescue Plan for summer academic and mental health support. That was an additional $30,166. And that's something that we can look into next summer, providing some summer education for kiddos that need a little bit of extra. It goes for the staffing, it goes for transportation, we can go to camps. So all of those can all be coded to that grant. So, and that's in addition to the ESSER dollars that we have received. So that's not part of that grouping. So,
Awesome.
so that's what I got.
Anything? No? All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. All right, other mitigation guidance plan.
Madam Chair and the board members, I did send you this over the last week. Brian and I, and Jamie, we kind of looked through our mitigation strategies and our guidelines that we shared with you back in August. We kind of updated some numbers and some strategies since we did this in August, kind of based off of what some other schools in the area have done and kind of what we've seen since we started school. So if you look at kind of just some of the changes that we've kind of updated, we updated the numbers, the previous in the August numbers, we had 7 to 10 cases in each building. We updated that number to 10 to 14 in each building. We've been around, I think the most we've had in the high school, I think at one point, I think we were at 9 to 10 at one point. For about a week or so, I think we were about that. That's the highest we've been. But based off of what I've seen at some other schools, Bertha Hewitt, Sabika, Pequot, some of those schools around us, I feel pretty confident that, that 10 to 14 number in those two schools, if you combine, our middle school and high school, if we were in that 20 to 28 range, I feel pretty comfortable that is a probably more realistic number. 7, if we had 7 in each building at 14 cases, would we look at doing something like masking? I don't think we would. Now that we've been averaging school-wide about 20, around 20, kind of what we've been seeing. So I think, in talking, I think that would be more of a realistic number of what we've been seeing. So I updated that number, and then we had 5% of the influenza-like illnesses if we had that number out. We've been running at that 5%, anywhere from 3.5% to 5%, pretty typical. We went as high, we were at about 7% for about a day and a half. 2 days, we were at 7%. So I think 5% would be a little bit low to say that if we had 5%, we would want to start masking or doing something like that. I think talking to Jamie and Ryan, the thought process there would be a lot of people are being cautious and they're doing what we've asked them to do. If they have symptoms, they're keeping them home for a few days. And then, you know,
They should have done that before COVID.
so keeping them home. So we're seeing on average about 4% of our kids out. So I think 5% might be a little low to say, you know, well, we're at 5%, we better look at something. So I think that 7% is more of a telling tale that we have something that we might want to look at something a little bit more severe of an issue. So we updated that number. And then the other thing, in talking with Michelle from Crow Wing County in Pequot, one of their strategies that they did, we felt like a good strategy. One of the first strategies we might want to do is, if we were at that 28 or 24, 28 number, would be to ask our staff to mask up first. One of the reasons being is it's easier to police adults. You have 700 kids, asking them to mask up. A lot of times they don't wear the mask properly. And as Michelle from Crow Wing County said, you know, if you have 30 kids out in your high school or your middle school, you can still operate. You can still run your school. But having staff out, you can't have your building in session. So keeping your adults and keeping your staff, not that you want kids to get it either, but having more staff protected and having we purchased KN95 masks, which are 95% more efficient and more do a much better job than the just regular masks. So we did purchase 500 of those masks that we would have maybe ask our staff to wear them first, which would help keeping our staff more safe and healthy. We could, if our staff are here, we could still operate and having staff having school in person. So that would maybe be our first strategy. So we added that under one of our mitigation strategies. That might be our first step versus saying to mask up our kids. It's much easier to police. It's much easier to, you know, do that as our first step before we maybe ask our whole student body to do that.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of them already have said they'd wear masks or.
Some, they did share that with our union, our executive team.
Masks.
They were not excited about it.
I'm sure they were.
They did not seem like they supported it, but Pequot, even when they reduced the student mask, they voted to keep that in for 14 days still. So it's a strategy that makes sense. It's a strategy that works to keep your staff in person. So those are the changes to this plan. I think it would be good, in talking to Wadena, he did have his board act upon his guidelines. And the reason being is that he felt it was important that if somebody came back to him or to board members, that he could say to people that the board was in support of this type of an agreement. So it wasn't, how did he word it? That they couldn't use it against him and separate you guys, that could pull you guys apart from each other and say, well, you know, Sarah, you could go and say, we needed to do this. And so I think you know, in August, I didn't really want to publish this, and I didn't want to put it on our website because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen in the first 2 weeks or the first month.
Didn't want to get locked into a box.
I didn't want to because I didn't know what those numbers were going to be. I didn't know where I wanted to go with it because everything was so new. And I now I have a better understanding. I think Jamie has a better understanding of what our cases are, what our parents are doing, how are they reacting to keeping kids at home, Are they following what we're asking them to do? So I feel a lot better about where our numbers are and what, if we're at 28 cases, I think we do have something that we need to do versus where we're at now. So I think it would be good. My recommendation would be to, it's up to you guys, but my recommendation would I put down an action item. Now that you've seen this, but it's up to you guys. But my recommendation would to look at this and to make an action item. And then I think it would be good to publish this on our website and go from there. But that's up to you guys, I guess. But that's my recommendation.
Would anybody like to make a motion to accept that as our district policy and put it on our website?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Any discussion?
I understand, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but if we lock it in, then we lose the flexibility.
To adjust that?
Yeah, if you're, I mean, as this thing grows or as this thing develops, maybe you're gonna say that, you know what, maybe that, I don't wanna lose the flexibility that you would have in making a decision or the administration.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Josh had a situation where he asked me a question one time where he wanted to know where we had something where if he got called out by when we sent a letter. When we send a letter out to families, we didn't really have it written anywhere where it backed him up.
No, I see.
So it made me think about where is it backing a principal where if we say we're going to ask this third grade classroom, let's say we have the third case in this classroom, and Josh says we need to mask up this third grade classroom for 14 days because we've had 3 cases in a week.
Yeah.
And he sends out that letter, and Jim Smith's mom and dad they don't want to do it. And he sends out that letter.
That you have to do that. That would be what I would say. Where's that written?
And then Josh says, well, it's our board has said, or, where's the guideline? And all I have is this, but we haven't published it anywhere. And it's just me right now saying,
No, it's probably appropriate, I get it.
that's where it made me think, well, we haven't really voted on it, or we haven't really said, right now it's me saying this. So if Josh had to send that letter out because we've had 3 cases in a third grade classroom, and we're going to ask him to mask up for 14 days because we've had 3 cases in that one classroom. And it made me think, you know what? Josh is right. What's going to back Josh up if he sends that letter out to that classroom?
And I sort of agree with what you're saying, is that when we started in this year, we said, hey, we're giving the flexibility and the responsibility to you to make those judgment calls as needed. And if we vote on it, we're taking that away from.
And I agree with 100%, but then I thought about Josh, and that's fine. So
then it's on your head rather than.
right. Well, and that's fine, but so if we don't, and then Josh sends that letter out, and we say you're going to mask up for 14 days, and then that parent comes back, and then I'm going to say, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to say we have guidelines, and this is what the guidelines are. They just can't come at you guys then and say, where's the guidelines? Well, you've given me that power. You guys need to stick behind me and Josh with this. Would be the only thing I guess we would have to say.
Are these, and I guess reading through them again quickly, I don't see anything other than we'll make informed decisions based on local data and such. But is there a way, is it still flexible enough where, we have a 15th, but that one came today, but we know one's gonna drop tomorrow. Is there still some flexibility in that?
I think that's kind of what we've been doing now, because we know tomorrow, and for example, we had 6 family members in our elementary that went through one family.
And that's what I was gonna ask. Some of these cases might just be.
We had 5 kids at one time that were in our elementary, but it was all one family.
Some of us chose to have more kids.
Right.
I think it is important that we support whatever you guys, I think.
And so,
as a board.
so we can, right. So we can put it on the website and doesn't have to, and maybe we don't even have to put it on the website. The only thing would be if Josh gets called on from a family or then that parent calls me, I'm gonna say, you know what, it's our guidelines, we're gonna support Josh. And if they call you guys out, I guess we need to follow through and say, yep, we're gonna support Mr. Malmer, or we're gonna support Mr. Smith, we're gonna give them, that would be what we need, I guess, the follow through.
Yeah, whatever you got, I guess, I don't know the procedure, but whatever, I mean, we can vote and say, yeah, we agree with that, or we give you the authority to do that, which we already have, I
Right.
think, but.
I guess I'd rather leave it to be flexible if we can
Okay.
take the back, but I think it's gonna be an ever-changing time all the time with it.
Well, and that's what I was gonna ask is, I agree, I don't have a problem putting it on there as long as at some point we can, we had to adjust it based on
Yeah,
situations.
Adjustment at once.
yeah,
Yeah, it could be, I mean,
I'm fine with it as long as you guys,
I don't have a problem putting it
Yeah,
on.
I would say that
We support.
publish it and say that this is school board reviewed and approved.
But.
and I don't
We
even
have
know
to
if we
vote
need
on
to
it?
publish it then. To be honest with you, nobody's even told me, hey, where's your stuff?
Okay.
I just think if somebody calls us out on it and then they don't like my decision, or if I give them the answer or Josh, and then they reach out to you guys and say, where is it at? You just need to say, we've given Mr. Malmer or the administration the
Yeah.
flexibility to do that from the guidelines.
Yep, but there's written guidelines. I don't
Yeah.
even see an issue with publishing it.
I don't
Well-
see an issue with publishing it either, and I'm thinking, when people have to wear masks, that's probably when you'll hear from more.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
Hopefully that won't happen, but.
So it's nice that we have that paper.
Yeah.
That guidelines written.
I take mine back.
What's that?
I take my vote back.
Your motion?
I take my motion.
If we don't really need
Just
to make
looked
a
at the
motion,
paper
we
on
can just
how
leave
that
it.
works and everything that I have at home on how to do that. I thought, I should be bringing that to board meetings every month and walked out the door, totally left it home. There's a whole paper on that.
so
So we can leave it as a guideline, that it's flexible to be changed.
If you think there
And we
becomes a
support it.
liability issue where we need to vote on it and it needs to be a policy, then we will. If you don't think that that's necessary, then let's leave it as a guideline. That'd be my opinion, so,
So you motioned and you seconded?
no.
I did.
Oh, you did, okay.
So we're all thinking
So
now,
basically,
leave
you would just do the voting and it would fail to, because you had a motion, you had discussion,
But we don't wanna,
you don't want it to pass.
They
so
don't
no-
wanna,
we
they
don't wanna fail
also
the
don't wanna
guidelines.
say they didn't want it there either by
Right.
voting it down.
we want it, we just don't.
Don't need it to be voted on.
Right,
So then you just call the
Well, we
vote
don't
and
wanna-
nobody passes it.
Well, whatever you think.
Right, well, that's what, you had a motion, you had a second. Now you had a discussion, now you would call the motion to vote and you would,
I'll say nay.
you would all say nay, yeah.
I think one other thing about this, and I realize this is a good practical approach
Yeah.
that we can control, but it feels a little strange to say, we're gonna protect our teachers with masks, but not the students. It's like we're saying, hey, it's okay if the students get sick and maybe get
I
really
think it
sick.
goes back to like that mandate thing. I think if parents wanna send their kids with a mask, they can send their kids with a
Yeah,
mask.
I
I
think
think
that's
it's
all.
the, I think it's the forcing people to do things is when it doesn't go well, and I guess if they're employees of the district and that's something that
We encourage, I mean, that's our policy,
it's encouraged.
they're recommended to wear.
Well, and I think you would, if you got 28 or 30 cases, you would send something out saying, you would put something out that says, we've got higher case numbers. We would strongly encourage you, more so,
Yep.
but, yeah,
But still, it's.
Yeah.
I get your point that, yeah, we're gonna
It just
make the
feels
teacher
a
work, but
little-
not the kids, but ultimately it's.
but, Pequot's doing that right now. They're
Yeah.
still, they've released, they've lightened up their restrictions. They still have 40 or 50 cases. They reduced lightened the load for students, but they've kept their mask mandate for the teachers.
Well, and because the way I look at it is, especially in middle and high school, you could have 30 kids that come to that one teacher that could be the one, that, okay,
Yeah.
this little John, Cassie had it in this class and she goes to see teacher Becky. And the only one that could pass it to the class then that I'm in, because I'm not in any classes with youth, and there's where, so masking the teachers would be the first step, because,
They have most contact.
yeah, it's the one that
Well,
passing it from group to
the-
group.
The part that
If that's
Jason
the
would
way
tell
it's
you,
going.
Jason and Wade would tell you through all of last year, it's hard, constantly telling kids, put your mask up, put your mask up. Because they're just, that's the part that's very tough, because you got 700 kids and they're not wearing it properly. And
No.
whereas the
Kindergarten.
adults,
They
they should be
even-
wearing it properly. And, so that's the one piece. It's easier to police. It's easier,
Yeah.
not saying that you don't want them to, but,
Definitely easy.
nothing's easy, but it's just the one thing that you're looking at as a practical procedure and a way that you can keep offering kids in school to keep coming to school. Because you can, if you have 30 kids out with COVID, you could still have school for 1,200 kids because your staff's here. You can't have school for 1,200 kids if you got 15 staff members out.
And I think we've already been pinched at different times with
Couple
being
times.
short on staff.
Because you don't have subs.
Yeah,
Nobody,
that's-
you don't have subs for anything, and you're stretching our staff thin because they're covering for each other already. So you're trying to do something to help staff, keep staff here because they're getting more out because they're covering for people who've had COVID already, or their kids have had COVID. So it's one more thing that you can maybe do to,
So, Sarah, what's the process? I like the idea of withdrawing the motion rather than.
Well, and that's, I do too, but I don't know,
I
because I
don't-
didn't
maybe it
bring
is
my
withdrawn.
paper.
well, we can always do it wrong. Let's just do it, just
So,
withdraw the motion.
Let's all say nay.
Well, you could do that.
And
That's not
I-
wrong.
That's what I
We
told
had a
Kath,
good
I'm gonna look
discussion,
when I get
I'll
home,
say
I'm
nay,
looking.
just grabs and that piece of paper, we're still all
So
agreed on.
I'd like to call the vote.
Yeah, let's do that because you can do that. And
Yes. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So we've had a motion and a second, which even if you motioned or seconded, you do not have to vote yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got discussion, so all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion
Good
declined.
conversation.
You don't get to say that very often.
No.
I'm
think that's a
I'm
very-
usually a singleton.
You shot him
That's
down.
the sixth, in 6 years, that's the first time a vote has failed 0-6.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But a
And I-
good discussion.
Yeah,
I will-
for sure.
I will look that up and,
Yeah.
because I've got a sheet of how that works from one of the classes I took and forgot to bring it. Moving on to approve the Cass County Children's Initiative Interagency Agreement, which should be included in the packet on your desks.
Yep, this is something we do every year with Cass County. It's a great organization. We do get some dollars that we use to use for our social worker in the elementary. Helps pay her salary.
I make the motion to approve this.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? See, now we're right back to voting yeses.
Yeah.
Superintendent's report.
All right, Madam Chair, board members, we have MEA break this coming week. We do not have school on Thursday and Friday. Just to recap, this last week, we had the CTC Center grand opening. We had the ribbon cutting ceremony on Tuesday, which I just really want to, once again, say great job by our Pro Start students. They did a great, fabulous
It was fabulous.
Fabulous
It was.
event there. The
I was
food
wondering what happened to the leftovers, because.
Well, I got some of them.
Yeah.
I got some of it, so I'm sorry.
It was probably the same.
I didn't get
And
that.
Avian just, their guy,
Yeah.
their people just.
They,
Yeah,
yeah. they did a
Avian's
good job.
knocked it out of the ballpark for us, their food, their donation of the food, and their chefs did a great job working with our kids, so I
Yeah.
appreciate all that they did. And then Kat Perkins on Thursday, she did a great job, and Tonic Sofa on Saturday, so a lot of good feedback from the events, so it was a long week, it was a busy week, I'm glad it's over, but it was a great week, so appreciate everybody, Jenny Wise for all her work, John Gordon for all the stuff that, I know it's been a busy couple months for him, Adam Heinrichs, for his work getting that place done and ready. I know he took a lot of pride in that from Norson to get that ready too. So appreciate it all. And then obviously CTC for their work and being a partner with us for that.
I do want to say that CTC came up to Brian and I a couple times and said how great John was to work with. So I want to make sure, point out that they all said he was good. So good,
Thanks.
good for him.
Appreciate it. They did want, when I kind of made a joke about putting another sign on the Eden wall over there.
Yeah, are they gonna, they're going for that?
Oh, they called me the next morning.
Awesome.
They already met today with Andy from CTC, and they are going to price out another sign on the end wall that's lit, and then they'll do a Pillager schools underneath it.
I was gonna say, just out of curiosity, can the lights instead of being blue and red be maroon and gold? Maybe.
It is their emblem.
It is.
We will gain occupancy for that building on November 1st, so it looks like we'll be able to have our band concert in there. We will have the Veterans Day program in the CTC Center. We're going to be on some of that planning for tomorrow. That will be on November 11th, which is a Thursday, at 9:30 a.m. So we will invite all the community members and the veterans to come and to that event. We'll live stream that as well. We'll live stream that so the students can watch it in the classroom. So they can, obviously we don't have room for everybody to come to it, but we'll live stream it back to the classroom, but the students that will participate in the event, like the choir and the band and the elementary kids that will be part of it. So we're excited to have that. We are also going to have a public open house. Obviously not everybody got to come to the ribbon cutting ceremony, but we're going to do a public open house for those who want to come. We're going to do that on November 9th. We'll put that in the newsletter. So that'll be from 10 to 2 on November 9th. So anybody who wants to come and see that facility will be able to come and do that. So it'll be a public open house.
November 9th?
November 9th.
What are the chances that like the chamber choir or a band ensemble or say that pyramid scheme would play? Just so they can hear a little something in.
I don't know. I think right now we just plan to have like people to come and do tours, and John would give them a tour, different thing. I don't know. We haven't planned it all. We just have it 10 to 2 right now.
Just a suggestion that at
Because the
say,
kids will be in school.
yeah, at say noon,
Yeah.
this, and I'm not saying all day, but at this particular time, there will be a little performance by such and such.
Possibly. We'll look at that.
I think we ought to have Mike up there singing a song.
Yeah.
And don't you think that would be great?
I have no offense, but I'm gonna say no. He's probably very good. However, I like
And
pyramid
tap
scheme a
dance.
little better.
Somebody did suggest the next thing they want to see in there was the river dance. So I said I'll get Jason, Wade, and Matt some training, and that they'll be the next act. I think
That I will help pay for
I
training
would
for.
pay to see that.
I will personally help pay for training on that.
Newsletter will be coming out right around November 1st, so that's in the process of getting ready to go. We did start having some beginning discussions of summer school and what that would look like with some of those ESSER dollars. So we talked about having the 3 weeks in the summer and trying to supply busing with that. So we started that discussion on what that would look like. The big problem is going to be, like everything, is to try to get staff to work for 3 weeks in the summer. We had a tough time getting staff last summer, but we thought if we got the word out right away and try to get people committed to do that. But we started that conversation here a couple weeks ago, so we'll start working on that. And we did talk to Eric at Fornshell and let him know that we'd like to try to do that with the regular routes that would run. It'd be like something like 8 to noon. And we talked about community ed, summer community ed would maybe run some type of camps in the afternoon that would go along with that, type of like soccer camp and
The theater
ski
camp
camp
always went
and
well
things
with
like
that.
that.
The theater camp always went well with that back
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah, we're gonna do, we talked about doing one of our own type of thing too. I think Abby Cool has maybe would be a possibility of doing
I
something.
think she ran one for a different school last year,
Staples,
yeah.
She didn't run it, but she was
Or,
part of it.
yep.
So, that's all I got. We do have a couple committee meetings here this month, so we do have district leadership team meeting. Well, that is on November 8th. I know it'll be tough for you, Cassie, because it's at 3:30. I know it'll be tough to make, but we'll get invites out to that. But it'll be a lot of the same stuff that we do on the 3rd. So, that's all I got.
Alright,
And we got a football game Wednesday and volleyball Tuesday.
Yes, we do.
okay. Anything from anybody else? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
One second.
Yes, you. Alright, any discussion? Anybody want to talk about how they want to stay long? No, that's